Rise and shine. This is your morning Buzzcast for Friday, July 25th, the final Friday in July, if you can believe it. I'm Austin Karp, here to take you into the weekend. I'm very glad I got to head over and check out ACC Kickoff on Wednesday because Thursday became a zoo with Bill Belichick taking to the stage for the first time at the event. There were a few hundred media members in attendance for the new North Carolina football coach's first ACC Kickoff press conference. In fact, ACC Communications confirmed to SBJ's Ben Portnoy that it received more credential applications this year for media days than ever before. Cameras were following Belichick from appearance to appearance in a gaggle that seemed like something out of a Tiger Woods horde at a PGA Tour event in his heyday. Not something you typically get at ACC media days, but this is what Belichick brings to the school and the conference. It's going to be good for ACC media partners as well in the fall. It does not take too much investigative reporting to understand most of its games, period, on big ESPN, maybe even some of those ABC slots. I've got my eye on that Week 6 game against, right now, top 5 Clemson, when there isn't actually a robust slate of SEC games that week. But it's no small deal for Chapel Hill. Last season, there were 0 football games on big ESPN. You had 5 on ACC Network, 3 on the CW, 2 on the Deuce, 1 on Fox, and 1 streaming on ESPN+. And beyond the media side of things, Chapel Hill has sold out all season and single game tickets, the earliest the football program there has ever sold out. If Belichick works out, it is not a bad situation there for incoming AD Steve Newmark to be stepping into. And all of this comes amid noise that North Carolina wants to bolt the ACC when the next big round of realignment takes place, with the SEC likely being its number one choice. That would line up likely with what Clemson and Florida State are also thinking out there in terms of leaving the conference longer term, even with the recent settlements with the conference. We know the ACC's decreasing exit fees dip from the $93 million it is right now to a flat $75 million with the 2030-2031 school year. But if a football breakaway sort of thing is the future of college football, UNC wants to be a part of that. It can leave the ACC and still have those marquee basketball games twice a season against Duke. They'll just make them an out-of-conference opponent, a lot easier to schedule that in basketball. It looks like a deal between the NFL and ESPN around key media assets is getting closer. My colleague Ben Fisher got the news cycle lit up last week when he exclusively reported from sources that the NFL had an owners meeting on the books to vote on the matter next month. The next big piece of news with the matter came from CNBC yesterday, which noted that the NFL could acquire 10% of ESPN as part of such a deal, though CNBC does admit that that is kind of a moving target in terms of a figure percentage-wise. But CNBC did cite sources that saying that ESPN would own all of NFL Network and the popular NFL Red Zone channel rather than just a controlling stake there if such a deal moves forward as currently constructed. Also, ESPN may not be in talks to acquire all of NFL media. That encompasses other areas like NFL Films, NFL.com, the NFL app, and the new streaming platform NFL Plus, a lot of preseason games and other content on that NFL Plus asset. But some of those other assets will have to see what is part of any deal between the NFL and ESPN if that gets done. And this could be incredibly important to ESPN's upcoming direct-to-consumer service launch. Content is still king, and the NFL is the king of kings in this country for sports content. Adding more NFL content to the service on a direct-to-consumer basis makes it incredibly desirable. Red Zone channel would be a really strong asset for the DDC to have, and if NFL Network is somehow offered on this platform, that's not just programming like Good Morning Football and others, but also maybe some other live NFL game content, at least in the short term. Maybe. But any deal still has to be approved by owners. A lot of moving parts there to pay attention to this coming month, perhaps. Let's switch over to some basketball. Cleveland's WNBA franchise, just 24 days into its existence, 3 seasons ahead of its debut game, and without a name yet, has accumulated 5,000 season ticket deposits, half of which are from the 26 to 41 age demo. According to Nick Barlage, CEO of Rock Entertainment Group, only 9% of the deposits come from current Cavaliers season ticket holders, but a great start there in Cleveland for the return of the WNBA. Barlage, who expects a team name announcement at the end of this year or no later than the first quarter of 2026, admitted that Rockers, the city's former WNBA team name, is under consideration for the new moniker. Either way, he said that if the Rockers name is not chosen, the franchise would hold periodic throwback nights where they wear those original Rocker jerseys. So good start so far for the WNBA franchise's return there. Just to give you a sense, though, of how popular the Valkyries are, the Golden State Valkyries, the debut season they're having this year, that team eclipsed 10,000 season ticket holders for its debut in 2025. They were the first WNBA team to hit that milestone. They've also got around 22,000 season ticket deposits, an incredible number there. The season ticket crossover, though, between the Warriors and the Valkyries was less than 5%. So it just goes again to show you how strong of a business story they have there in Golden State, what Jess Smith and the owners of the Valkyries are able to do out there in the Bay. There's some decent nuggets on sports video games from my colleague Jason Wilson I wanted to go over. NASCAR's return to a home console video game has a release date, and NASCAR 25 comes out October 14th. That's Xbox and PS5. You PC gamers are going to have to wait a little longer. NASCAR hasn't had a console release since 2021, and that game was so riddled with bugs and other issues that many labeled it the worst NASCAR game ever made. But NASCAR reevaluated its strategy, eventually handing the reins to iRacing, which is actually producing its first standalone console game ever. With this effort, they obviously do a lot on the sim racing side, very successful there. NASCAR 25 is going to feature the Cup Series, Xfinity, Craftsman Truck, and even the ARCA Menard Series in that title. NASCAR is also taking a unique approach with the release of this game. While most sports titles launch before a new season begins, NASCAR 25, the game, is coming out in the thick of the playoffs. That's between the October 12th race at Vegas and October 19th at Talladega. So why this approach? Because the folks at NASCAR and iRacing think the release at this time allows fans to play right as playoff battles are escalating. We'll pay attention to the numbers that are probably going to be coming from Circana as to whether that effort pays off in terms of sales. Looking at another sport, MLB The Show 25 was the 7th best-selling game of June in the U.S., and per data from gaming industry group Circana, MLB The Show 25 had its biggest first half of the year for full game dollar sales in the franchise's history. That dates back to its launch in 2006. It even passes 2021 when sales were goosed a little bit by the pandemic and fans staying at home playing the game a lot. Sales are actually up more than 20% year to date. You got to figure that's good for baseball. They're looking for any way to get younger fans involved with the game, get to know the game, and if they're playing video games, a lot of young demos, maybe they're going to be interested in watching a little more baseball, something Major League Baseball has really been aiming at over the last few years. Let's take things home with a few quick hitters this morning. As this podcast is coming out, Tim Pernetti, commissioner of the American Conference, is going to be taking the podium for his speech at Conference Football Media Days, also here in my hometown of Charlotte. It has been an interesting week for Pernetti and the American, the rollout of a new brand identity, and at the same time, one of its members, Memphis, very publicly getting rejected by the Big 12 despite an offer of a big amount of cash. I expect the always candid Pernetti to be a strong final act for commissioner speeches at media days, those that we've seen so far. Donald Trump issued an executive order Thursday aimed at prohibiting third-party pay-for-play payments. POTUS has directed the Secretary of Labor and the NLRB to clarify that athletes are amateurs and not employees. The order does not apply to legitimate fair market value compensation that a third party provides to an athlete, such as for a brand endorsement. But is there an enforcement apparatus here? No, it's an executive order, and like ones aimed at something like homelessness, it's a lot more politics than real concrete action, like what may or may not eventually come from Congress. A new NFL venue at the RFK Stadium site is taking another big step next week. The first vote by the D.C. Council on the deal is scheduled for August 1st. After the council hears public testimony on Tuesday and Wednesday from residents, as well as officials from the D.C. Mayor's administration and the Commanders. D.C. Council Chair Phil Mendelson scheduling the vote follows his reaching of a modified agreement with the Commanders to redevelop the RFK Stadium site with public funds. And I want to close things out with two people notes. First, wishing a speedy recovery to Kansas basketball coach Bill Self. He was hospitalized Thursday in Lawrence, had 2 stents inserted, so speedy recovery to him. And finally, Hulk Hogan passed away Thursday at the age of 71. I came of age in the late 80s, early 90s, and Hulk Hogan was a larger-than-life figure to me when I was a fan of what was then the WWF. He would always fight with or against Macho Man and guys like Ultimate Warrior, against characters like Sergeant Slaughter and Earthquake, and then seeing him in movies like Rocky III. We won't talk about movies like Suburban Commando or No Holds Barred, but he was really everything to the WWE for a long time in terms of star power. And yesterday, you saw folks like Triple H, Paul Levesque, tweeting that WWE would not be in the place where it is today without someone like Hogan, and I could not agree more. Rest in peace, Hulkamania. So, that is your morning Buzzcast for Friday, July 25th. I'm Austin Karp. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Make good choices out there, and I will speak to you all again next week.